Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 64 of the Alexei and Talal podcast. Slightly delayed, but it does mean it's Christmas morning. Ping goes on your phone, and it's a new edition of the Alexei and Talal podcast. And you think, well, what better Christmas gift could there be than this? Really, that hovercraft that my auntie has bought me. That is nothing as compared to the Christmas morning miracle of the Alexei and Talal podcast. But and as you know, as we are, you know, as there is a yin, there is a yang. The reason that we're slightly delayed because we've been we've learned our lesson and have been putting out a podcast every week, which is what the machine demands. But we didn't this week because poor Talal's been ill. Would you like to?
Oh man,
tell the ladies and gentlemen about that?
Yeah, sorry, ladies and gents. Yeah, we missed last week's drop. We have a good one in the bank as well, so that'll come out next week, won't it? But
yes, that's an all. Well, you're going to do it on Audio Boom, but do it on YouTube as well as a.
There'll be a video edition of it. Yes,
it's just me sitting on a couch and Andrew Feinstein sitting on a couch.
Oh, spoilers! Yeah, exactly.
It's not.
Yeah, it's filmed in high def, wide angle.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was in the wars, man. I couldn't do any work. I was in fucking hospital basically on Thursday night. But before I tell you that, so there was like almost 2 years ago, I don't know if you remember, Alexei, I was having these really bad stomach pains.
I do remember.
And they were getting worse and worse and worse. And when it became unbearable, I went to the doctor and he touched my tummy in a certain place. And I said, ow. And he said, you're an idiot. Go to A&E now. What are you doing? He thought my appendix was on the verge of exploding.
Yeah.
I ended up in hospital for 3 days because it wasn't my appendix. There was an infected abscess in my colon. Ooh. Oh, yeah. Trigger warning for listeners. There's some body horror stuff. And they said if the antibiotics didn't work, they were going to have to cut out my lower intestine. And it was terrifying. And I had 3 days in hospital. And luckily the antibiotics worked. And then I was probed and prodded and scanned. And given the all clear eventually. And so last Thursday night, I normally edit the podcast Thursday, Friday, so that we release it on Saturday. But on Wednesday night, actually, me and my girlfriend ate a massive, huge pizza each. And I started feeling stomach pains that evening. And I'm like, all right, this is worrying. And then Thursday night, I'm lying in bed, unable to sleep because the pain is getting really, really bad. And I start having a horrible panic attack because I'm thinking, I did a gig on Thursday evening and I came home.
Oh, that's the Eric Morecambe Medal for comedic bravery there that you should be awarded for that.
Thank you very much. It was an improv show as well. Can you believe it? It was the look of disappointment in your face. But you got to work, and I was really worried because like I couldn't work last week, and I missed the podcast, and this is my main income, and I'm like, fuck, am I going to even make rent next month? And it's Christmas coming up, work is like really thin on the ground, and I start having a panic attack because I think I'm about to go to hospital and spend 3 days in hospital again, and they're going to threaten to cut out my guts again, and all this, and I'm freaking out in bed and crying my eyes out and suffering agony as well. So at like 2:30 in the morning, I get out of bed, drenched in sweat, and I call 111 because, of course, I don't want to bother the people at 999 with anything. And rightly so, I think I wasn't going to die. But I called 111 and I explained everything that I've just said to you. And he says, this lovely guy called Asim on the phone, he books me an emergency appointment at 4:00 in the morning for these out-of-hours doctor's appointments. I didn't know you could get those.
Yeah.
And it's down the road from me. There's a there's a health centre down the road.
It's not an all-night health centre down the road.
Yeah, well, it was locked up, and I thought I got there, and I was like,
yeah,
what? It seems locked up, but there's a buzzer, and the guy's like, come to the first floor, and then the doors magically open. So yeah, I went there. My car didn't start properly at first, but eventually started. I was freaking out about that, and I got there, and she did loads of tests on me. This lovely doctor, and turns out I have a UTI.
Right. It's urinary tract infection for anybody. Yeah. Usually, my mother used to get those frequently, and I think the last one, one of the latest ones she had, you often get delusional, don't you? And she was in the hospital, and she insisted that the nurses and doctors were having parties inside the walls. But the thing was, once she got better, she still insisted that was true.
Oh, no. Well,
she's so stubborn, my mother. She was like, you said the nurses were having parties in the walls. She said, yes, they were. Jesus. How would they get in the walls, you old lunatic?
I think when you have those delusions, they become memories, don't they, I suppose? I suppose so. Your logic would tell you it can't be true, but...
Yeah, Molly didn't really. Yeah, Molly wasn't a great believer in logic.
I wish it was an abscess in my tummy, because the pain that followed over the weekend, I've never experienced anything like it. It was, and I can see why people get hallucinations, because the pain is so intense.
Right.
And it was mainly in my bladder, because, again, sorry for over-explaining, but it didn't hurt when I didn't hurt when I peed.
Right.
It just hurt all the time.
Yeah.
And it was above where the pee was. It's at the bottom of my tummy, just constant pain. And then these cramps would come, which were just searing, agonizing, screaming.
Shouldn't have stopped you putting the fucking podcast out.
Shut up. Really. I feel so bad for my neighbours. Screaming in agony and moaning. My neighbours must have been like, what the fuck's going on upstairs? And I can't move. When I was walking around, I'm hunched over. I'm like a shell of a human, like a shadow, just hunched over, walking as slow as I possibly can. And any movement, because, your bladder is like a ball half filled with liquid, isn't it? And if the inner walls of that ball are infected, anytime liquid touches them, you get this stinging, searing. So anytime I drink water, because I have to constantly drink water, and then my bladder would fill up and it would go and just fucking burn. It was like these stinging cramps. And I really it grounded me, man. It made me realize how fragile we are. And not to sound too tacky, but it did make me think of those suffering, especially in fucking Gaza, where there's no hospitals. Imagine if you had that and there was no antibiotics.
Yeah.
No one to help you. I'm so lucky I have an amazing girlfriend who just broke off from work and had to cancel all her plans to be fucking night nurse for me.
Yeah.
And clean up around me and shit, and just have to deal with this goblin crawling around the flat.
Yeah. Well, it sounds awful. I don't think I've ever been. I'm sort of been that ill, but not in that level of pain, I think. So,
no.
I'm sorry, and I'm sure everybody in the Alexei podcast community wishes you well.
Thank you. I woke up today feeling human again for the first time.
Good. And we resolved, didn't we? We thought, well, we better get something out for Christmas, really.
Yes. I'm loving this get up and go attitude of yours. By the way, since we started the weekly ones, which was your idea, to my surprise.
Yeah.
Because when we started this podcast, I was like, yeah, we normally podcasts go out every week. And you're like, nah, we'll do one when I can be bothered, or when we have a guest or whatever. And I was very happy to do that. But then a few weeks ago, you called me. It's like, let's do one every week, Talal. What do you think? Wouldn't that be swell? And then this morning you call me. Are you better yet, Talal?
Yeah,
we should do one. It's Christmas.
Yeah. Well.
And I love it. I love this attitude, and I love just putting stuff out there. Why not? People like to hear from.
I realised that, you didn't. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, still, it is proving more popular than
I hope
the occasional,
I think so. We're getting a lot more engagement, which is good. emails and comments, and there's a couple of what's the word? I don't know, annoying commenters, but in a sea of really positive stuff and engaging stuff, not even just positive for the people who are like discussing things, like on the Syrian one. Yeah, the last episode we put out, we're talking about the Syrian ousting of Assad, the revolution, the uprising, whatever you want to call it. A lot of comments are just discussing the topic. And
I mean, I've been thinking about that a lot, really, because I think it does. I mean, I think you're probably right that Giuliani is a stooge of the Turks, and I heard a report yesterday that he's saying that all arms have to come under his control, really, which means disarming the Kurds, which means, that is Turkey's main desire, and I think it also means that the flow of arms to Hezbollah and Hamas, the Palestinian resistance, is severely affected because it came down through Syria. It's just that it's that thing that because Syria and Iran are enemies of the West, that we can't admit that they're all so terrible countries. And I was just thinking, I mean, let's remember that when Khomeini came to power after the revolution, it was in an alliance with socialists and communists. I mean, they did a lot of the heavy lifting of deposing the Shah. And of course, the first thing he did was to exterminate them all, really. So, I mean, I wish there was like a really nice country that we could say aids the Palestinian resistance, but there isn't. There's no. It's one of the things that's always bothered me about my parents' communism was that they turned a blind, because they thought that the Soviet Union was a superior state, which in some ways it was. They turned a blind eye to all its deficiencies, the show trials and the kind of the lack of any real democracy, and the secret police state and so on and so forth.
But isn't it still a bit early to be saying that there's no chance of democracy happening in Syria?
Well, we'll see, really. I know you're more optimistic than I am, really. I remain cynical about it, really. I know it's only been a couple of weeks.
Well, it's not even a matter of more optimistic. It's just a good thing that happened.
Yes, absolutely. There were some people who were in prison and being tortured who are now not in prison and being tortured, and that's an amazing thing. I mean, that's fantastic, and we shouldn't, because it has severely affected, severely affected Iran and Hezbollah, because it has affected the armed resistance of Israel. There is no reason to not be happy about that. Whether in a few weeks' time or some other different people are in jail and being tortured, of course, is another. We will see, really. I know you're more optimistic than I am, really. And it is a marvellous thing. Whoever was financing it, however many foreign fighters were in HTS or One Direction or whoever they are, it's still a marvellous thing that people...
And American support isn't the be-all and end-all. Like, America did support HTS, and now they were behind the SDF this time. It's whatever makes them look good is who they will go behind.
Probably, but they will also drop. I mean, the Kurds were leading the fight, as we said, I think last time, we're leading the fight against ISIS, that all the prisons with the ISIS in are in the Kurdish-controlled regions, and so I don't know how. But Turkey. I mean, certainly Erdogan, for whatever reason, I don't know a huge amount about the politics of that. But I mean, Erdogan, for whatever reason, wants to crush Kurdish resistance both in his own country and in the broader Syrian diaspora. And I think that you could see from my military context. You could tell me that all the arms were really HTS came from Turkey, really, and so he who pays the piper tends to call the tune.
Well, we're yet to see what outcomes of that. But I did have a really nice call with my mum last week, and she was still overjoyed. And I was like, "Can you talk to me a bit about about your feelings on Syria, and she's like, Talal, we're still celebrating. There's still so much more to come. Like, people in their millions are coming back to Syria. All these refugees that people have been complaining about over the last 12 years, millions of them are going to start going back to their home because that's what they've always wanted. People are flooding in from Turkey, which is another reason why Turkey might have been helping them, because Turkey wasn't happy having these millions of refugees in their country, and the other surrounding countries around Syria want these refugees back in their country. They're all walking across the border, going back to Syria, including, scientists, engineers, doctors, all faiths going back to their homes. So far, Christians and other minorities haven't been persecuted.
No.
And it's not... If you look at the immediate aftermath in the Libyan revolution, it's not gone down that road yet. We've not had mass casualties.
No.
The worst things we've seen have been foreign states bombing Syria still, including Turkey and Israel. So let's see. But I had a couple, when we released that episode, I had a bout of paranoia and self-doubt, because there were some comments that were calling me ignorant and all that, and I was like, they're not Syrians, and they were telling me I was wrong for having my feelings about having a dictator who killed members of my family and countless others, and as we can see from the mass graves, I was celebrating him being gone. And people saying, oh, no, he was a friend of Palestine. He was not a friend of Palestine. He'd killed thousands of Palestinians himself, refugees in Syria. And I got a really nice email from Pete saying our episode was a breath of fresh air. Lots of left-leaning outlets have been banging on about Syria in negative terms. And now I'm quoting him, I ask frequently, well, what do you want? For Assad still be in control? And if not, what do you want then? No answer. I'm not naive. There's a long way to go, and it could still all implode. I'm agreeing with everything he says so far. Yeah. But as you said, allow them at least this moment of celebration.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's that contradiction, and which has always existed on the left in the 20th century and the 21st century, of not criticizing, somebody who appears to be aiding what we would consider our cause. And I think that is something that we have to find a way to not do, really, because I think it's a mistake. I think it corrodes your own honesty if you are making excuses for a dictatorship simply because it is aiding the Palestinian resistance, for example.
Yeah, but they were.
It corrodes your honesty. It corrodes your corrodes your reputation for honesty in the eyes of other people. And it's I understand why people do. People are so desperate for a win. I mean, Owen Jones, who I have a great deal of respect for, has redeemed himself with his coverage of Palestine. Nevertheless, there's that kind of sarky thing of laughing at the left who support, who are, supported Assad or deplore his.
I haven't seen his coverage of Syria.
I haven't very much, but I just get the feeling, really. I've seen the odd headline.
Look into that.
But it's not, it comes out, I think it comes out of a kind of desperation, really. We're so desperate for a win. We're so desperate for heroes. We're so desperate, we're so always so on the back foot that I think sometimes we lend our admiration to people who don't really deserve it. And I think that's something that we really, I saw it in my parents' generation, and I see it in my own generation, and it doesn't ultimately work if what we want is, somehow bring about socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it, to be backing off on criticism of monsters because they're on our side is always going to be problematic, I think.
We should
And
Always.
leads you to kind of jumping through mental loopholes.
No, we should always be honest about accountability and holding people to account. And
exactly, yeah. I mean, you just have to be completely...
Because if we forgive the sins of one person, why aren't we forgiving the sins of the other side?
Yeah.
You
have to be consistent, really. As Jeremy has always been, of course.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
Just look at Corbyn. If they're not like him, then they're evil.
Yeah. Jeremy's always known the right line to cry. Jeremy is our hero.
Oh, bless him. The only JC I want this Christmas.
Now, so there was a thing that we did last, which was a massive success, millions and millions and millions of hits on, which was the alternative Christmas message. If people remember, the alternative. Yes, I was so outraged when I heard about Stephen Fry's pusillanimous message about how he supports the Jewish people, which means he supports essentially those Jewish people who support Israel. And so we did an alternative message, which by some metrics I think was more successful than his Channel 4 message. This year it's Chris McCausland doing their pleading for the blind guy who won Celebrity. What's it called? Come Dancing. What's it called?
Strictly.
Strictly. Yeah. So he's doing it this year, and it's a plea for greater tolerance for disabled people. So I don't really think we could do, and we can't do an alternative message calling for more intolerance towards disabled people. Nor would we wish
less ramps. No, that's actually a really good cause. But maybe we could bolster that message. Because think of the amount of disabled people in Palestine that have been created.
Well, yes, I'm sure Chris McCausland's message is going to be, it's not going to be a Marxist one. I mean, the reason for all oppression, we could say the oppression of discrimination against disabled people, the discrimination against people of other faiths and other sexualities is down to this malevolent capitalist system that we live in. That we will only have true lack of discrimination, we only have true equality when we live under a system of socialism where all are regarded as equal, and it doesn't. It's an economic system which doesn't depend on the rampant exploitation of the many for the obscene wealth of the few, really. I always think about that.
Wait, can I just say that was beautiful, man.
Oh, thank you.
Here, comrade.
Yeah. Well, it's that's our core message. I was just thinking about there's a kind of trite Thatcher saying, which is people quote sometimes. The trouble with being a socialist is that you run out of other people's money. But it's not other people's money. It's the people's money. And you don't run out of it because it's being spent for the benefit of the people.
Exactly.
It's not bloody Elon Musk's money. It's not Jeff Bezos's money.
If they're so adamant that we should have borders and states and nations, then why is the nation's money then divided into different... It should be the people's money.
Of these,
if we are a nation, then we are a nation. We are one unit who have to support and look out for each other and work for each other.
Those rich people didn't make... they don't make any money. They don't do it. They
didn't make shit.
They don't make shit. They just fucking steal it, man. And...
the workers should have... ownership of the means of production.
That's right. Communist Manifesto, man.
It's just it's outrageous, the inequality out here, and it's just
cyclists of the world unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains.
Nice, that's a new one.
I just made that up. It doesn't entirely make sense, but yeah. Anyway, but I'm not going to. Obviously, Chris McCausland's message will be.
We're not going to lampoon.
Be a good thing and be,
absolutely
call for greater tolerance
and also
on him. And he's from Liverpool, I think.
Oh, nice! And he won Strictly.
Yeah. I don't like or watch Strictly, so I don't know.
That's brilliant.
But yeah, I guess
a further proof that we're all equal and all capable. if given the chance and given the opportunity.
We're all capable, what our disabilities are, we're all capable of taking part in unbelievably bad dancing with terrible music. We're all free to do that.
I told my Strictly story. I told my Strictly story and how I feel about that fucking business.
Yeah. Oh. It's gruesome. I thought we'd...
Okay, so I don't have to worry about coming over to your house and filming a Christmas message then?
No, I don't.
This year.
Think it would be... it would be...
Anyway, we don't want to...
I think.
We don't want to repeat. We'll think of another opportunity to go viral. There'll be some other gimmick we can think of.
Yeah, something called Turn Up. So, I don't...
I've got some activities for you if you want.
Yeah, go on.
All right, I've since this morning when you called me and said you want to record something, I've scoured the internet for some sort of festive activities, not festive at all, but some activities that might interest you. I've got 5 quizzes. Pick one to 5.
5 quick, 1.
1. Oh, God. All right. This is the heavy one.
5. All
right.
4.
No, we're going with 1. You can play along at home. All right, Alexei. What percentage socialist are you?
What percentage socialist am I?
Yeah, that's the title of the quiz.
Oh, right.
Okay?
Well, yeah.
I'm going to ask you some questions.
All right. Well,
if at any point, if a question triggers you to have if you want to discuss it or talk about it, or have a monologue on it, then by all means, there's no time limit. Question 1, should the state simply cease to exist? It's multiple choice. Should the state simply cease to exist? Yes.
Well, there you go.
Yes. No, then the market will kill us all. No, then the warlords will kill us all. Or only if I get to be either one of the warlords or on the right side of the market. Should the state simply cease to exist?
This is a... flippant, isn't it? It's not, socialism is a good arena for flippancy, which is what I mean. It's being comical, isn't it? This quiz. I mean, it was Lenin's theory that the state would, once you had socialism and then you progress to communism and then the state would wither away, and that is the ultimate goal of when we get anarchism. I think that ultimately the state should wither away. I mean, it's no point, the conditions have to exist for it to wither away, I'm afraid. But obviously this kind of oppressive state that we live under, constantly facial recognition, drone strike state that we live under should be withered away. But I wouldn't say that the conditions for that, you can't preemptively move to that stage. I think that's what Lenin said.
Okay, so I'll click on
the other hand, that was possibly an excuse of his not to ever let go of power. But yeah, that's the ultimate. That's the ultimate aim, I think. So
I guess the question is wrong because it says, "Should the state simply cease to exist?" And that is.
It shouldn't. Well,
simply is the problem.
It should ultimately cease to exist. Yes, so that people. What we mean by that, obviously, is that there are. It's not that there are no structures, I think, for governance, but the structure, the governance, control of your life devolves down to a hyper-local level, that you control every aspect of your own. Eh?
Yeah, you're right. But I think in the nature of this multiple, I've had a little look at this quiz. The nature of
I'm 100% socialist. I've given an extremely lengthy answer to a short question.
No, that's the point. I wanted you to. I'm not trying to hurry you, but I think the nature of this multiple choice is that you just got to pick the one that most fits with what you actually think.
I think.
Okay, I'm going to give this quiz 1 strike. If it gets 3 strikes, then we'll close the quiz. And
I thought my answer was quite.
Your answer was fantastic. Here's the second question: What is the best solution to climate change? Do you want me to read the multiple choice, or do you want to just ramble on and then I'll pick the one that best?
Well, the same answer is it's always socialism. I mean, we live in a society. I mean, the central problem with capitalism, it seems unfixable, is that we live in a society that depends on constant and greater consumption. So that means two things. One, the resources of the earth, which are finite, are depleted, and secondly, that we exist in a state of permanent dissatisfaction, because people have to be convinced that the next thing they buy is the thing that's going to make them happy, and so you live in a world both of mental imbalance and physical imbalance, and that's why there's kind of the ridiculous of wellness, of that. I mean, you can make yourself feel mentally better, but the reason that so many people are so unhappy is the economic state in which they live, and of course that is never mentioned as a solution. Take these pills that will bring about a worker state, will bring about anarchism, true anarchism. That's never going to be, so any meditation or increasing your zinc or whatever, it might make you feel a bit better, but it's not the solution to the solution to the world's, to Britain's problems lie in a true state of socialism. Without that, I can't see how. I mean, if bravo, if they can find a way to not continue depleting the earth's finite resources, then I take my hat off to you, sir. But I mean, at the moment, there's all this empty theatre of electric cars, and which is completely electric cars are heavier, so they destroy the roads. Or you get like the low traffic neighborhoods, I think, which they do. The neighborhoods are beautifully serene, and where they've blocked off the traffic, but it just forces all the traffic onto the main roads, and that traffic has to be there for our consumer society to continue. So when stuff like electric cars or heat pumps or all this stuff is just a kind of, seems to me to be a delaying tactic, and because it's impossible to have a society which is based on continuing and growing consumption. I mean, that's what the Labour Party's solution to the problems of this country is increased growth, which means increase, as I understand it. I mean, maybe the listeners can prove me wrong, but increased growth, which means increased consumption of resources, increased shopping.
As long as they're produced somewhere else and the pollution is somewhere else.
Well, yeah.
You can't NIMBY your way out of carbon, out of climate change.
There's all that about it is typical. I mean, you do think sort of nature. I mean, the people who are suffering from the climate crisis, of course, are the ones, just like, the people of Palestine are the ones who pay entirely for European anti-Semitism. So the people of, the developing world, the global south, are the ones paying for our consumerist lifestyles. And again, the only solution, I'm afraid, is a change of economic priorities.
So I'm going to click on nationalize all means of production, then simply stop using, again, the word simply, then simply stop using carbon intense fuels. I think that best matches.
It's
not perfect, but
I'm not. I actually don't. I was thinking about this last night, just how much. I was thinking about Liverpool and that, sort of in the 60s and 70s. The city council hated small businesses. They liked big businesses. They loved them because they could understand them. And they like big trade unions. And
actually, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Because the next question is, how do you feel about for-profit companies?
Well, I think that, again, I don't offer any absolute solution. It seems to me that I've always had great sympathy with the small business, the small trader, who's always been caught in the middle, really, between the kind of the big companies, and it used to be the big trade unions and big politics, really. I think somebody who runs, starts a bar or a cafe or, business selling their own honey. You can't nationalize that, nor should you seek to, I think. And that was obviously a tremendous failure of that kind of Soviet style of communism, was that everything was controlled by the state. And that simply doesn't work. I mean, obviously major utilities, rail, water, power should be controlled by the state. But I think there has to be, room for small enterprises. Now, some people would say that then introduces these kind of contradictions, because when the small businesses become big businesses, what do you do about them then? And I don't particularly have an answer for that, but I certainly I don't think that universal nationalization is,
Well, I suppose if a small business becomes big enough that it's mass producing or supplying services to millions of people, then it's become a good point to maybe think about nationalizing it or putting it back into the hands of the people. If there are more people working there than the people running it, maybe they should. There's a complicated.
I mean, you could obviously have a fair degree. I mean, any enterprise, you should have a fair degree of workers' control, so the workers are, there's workers sit on the boards, and they decide, policy and so on and so forth. I think that mind you, I think Germany had a lot of that, and that doesn't seem to have really worked.
Okay, so I'm going to click on. So the question was, how do you feel about for-profit companies? I'm going to click on big ones are evil. Little ones owned by mum and pop are okay. That seems to be
anticipated my response.
This next question is annoying. So I'm actually just going to read all the choices for you straight away. For what cause would you go to a march? Destroying capitalism, fairer wages, women's rights, or gun rights? That's an annoying question. Yeah, this quiz is a piece of shit. Strike two, quiz.
It's American, isn't it, this quiz?
I guess it is, yeah. But there is a mention of something very British coming up. So, which of those four should I pick, do you think? It doesn't really matter. Fairer wages, destroying capitalism, women's rights.
I refuse to. I'll take the Fifth Amendment on that one.
Okay.
It's absurd.
I wish there was a skip button. I'm going to click destroying capitalism.
Okay.
All right. What deceased political thinker do you admire?
Oh, well, loads, really. I just did a podcast for Global, those kind of dinner party, My Perfect Dinner Party, and I chose Antonio Gramsci, the Italian Marxist, and somebody, I admire him. I admire. I'd like to actually know more about. I've read Francis Wheen's biography of Marx. It'd be interesting to read more about Engels, because Engels, of course, whereas Marx lived in penury, Engels lived, went fox hunting and stuff like that, and was the scion of a wealthy fabric manufacturing concern in the north. No, Engels essentially financed Marx, but nevertheless he argued for his own destruction, as it were. So I'd actually like to know more about the personal life of Engels.
Engels and Gramsci are not here, but Marx is, alongside Robert Owen. Who's that?
Robert Owen was a sort of he argued for kind of. I think a sort of socialism, but a kind of paternalistic socialism. He's a sort of reformer. I think a lot of the ideas of, like these kind of factory towns, these benevolent factory towns like Port Sunlight or Bourneville, or I think he was essentially a socialist reformer. It's a long time since I've don't hear much about him these days. I might be I might be completely wrong, but that's what I seem to remember.
It's Christmas, I'll forgive you. And J.S. Mill is on there.
John Stuart Mill, the philosopher.
Guess. And Edmund Burke. Any thoughts you want to share on either of those? No. Good.
No. Well, no.
All right, the next question is... It's going to be a long question. What sort of...
I know that I could say their names, and I do know... If you said this is what they believe, I would go, yeah, of course they do.
Of course. Okay.
I've temporarily forgotten.
What sort of car do you drive? I could answer this one for you.
Citroën.
Yeah, but there's an answer here that says, I generally use public transport, but when I drive, it's either something really old or something electric.
Yeah, well, that's something really, pretty old. I mean,
I think that best
2012.
fits. But you do use a lot of public transport.
12, yeah, I cycle.
And you cycle, yeah. All right, how do you feel about the institution of marriage?
I've been married for 50 years, so I think I must feel quite well disposed to it. I mean, you could say it's a function of capitalism, I suppose. But Robert Louis Stevenson said, marriage is a form of friendship recognized by the police.
That's great.
Yeah.
Recognized by the police.
Yeah. That's what I think about marriage.
Oh, God, there's not an option for that.
Well,
it's great, and everyone should join it who wants to. That's what I'm clicking on for you. All right. How do you feel about communists?
Well, do you want
to hear the options?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, option 1, they're great. Option 2, they're like that embarrassing drunk uncle who I hope people realize I can't stand either. Option 3, they're utter idiots, but currently less dangerous than fascists. Option 4, I hate them. Not great options.
I think they're great.
Yeah, they're great.
I think they're ace. Communists, they're the bomb.
Bomb. Is healthcare a right?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Whose voice do you admire today in politics? Jeremy Corbyn. I'm clicking that one. I'm not even going to bother reading the rest of them. Which country is a good role model?
I wonder about Mexico, really. I mean, I think that I know that. I mean, AMLO went out, left office with massive approval ratings, and his Moreno party is the president is now a Jewish woman. It's 80%, also 80% in a country that must have such tremendous problems, as my Argentinian friend says. Poor Mexico, so far from God, so close to the United States. You know, I think having to deal with the kind of minefield of having the United States to the north, having the cartels, which are a creation of the United States, because they're a creation of the desperate need of the population of the United States to take as many drugs as possible to help them survive in that awful country. I connected with the United States love of waving around guns when they're high on. I admire Mexico, I think. Again, people can email in and say, no, it's a shit. I mean, I suppose to a degree you used to admire the places that came closest to a kind of benevolent socialism in a capitalist world were, the Scandinavian democracies, social democracies, but they seem to be getting pretty shitty now.
Oh. Because Norway is an option out of the 4. Mexico is not.
I don't know if I could really approve of a place where it's £10 for a pint. Well, actually, it's £10 for a pint here. What am I talking about? £20 for a pint. I don't know. Pizza costs 30 quid.
But there's one of the options. Yeah, go on.
They took their oil money and they put it in a sovereign wealth fund, whereas what Margaret Thatcher did was took our oil money and spent it on keeping people on the dole, so they wouldn't. So they were unemployed, but they just got enough money to, survive. Actually, I just wanted.
And she demonized them all as well. And she demonized them all for doing so as well.
Yeah. So I don't know about Norway really. I mean, it's. I think I don't know. We may still be boycotting them because of their whaling as well. They're bizarrely keen on whaling, and but I mean, interesting country. I don't know an awful lot about it, but Ibsen.
Let's do a bike ride there.
Okay, yeah, let's go.
I'll take option 1, which is the one that Marx describes in the Communist Manifesto. That's the closest thing I could find. All right.
Which one's that? I mean, imaginary place.
Yeah. Would you describe yourself as a feminist?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Great. Does socialism automatically mean a high level of government involvement in your life? That's an interesting one.
Well, no, it shouldn't. No, I think that no. No, it shouldn't. It should the reverse, really, at a high level of government non-involvement in your life. We're not aiming for this kind of paternalistic kind of interfering.
Interesting. Okay. So would you say no? No. Socialism is a step on the road to communism and ultimately the withering of the state.
Yes, I would.
Or would you say no? That's authoritarianism. It's not even on the same axis.
No, I would say the first thing you said.
Okay, great. Should workers have a seat on corporate boards?
Yeah, we've already discussed. Yes, I don't know ultimately how much difference. As I said, Germany, which seemed all right until recently, where I think had a lot of workers' involvement on their corporate boards, but it doesn't seem to have led to. Certainly their foreign policy is monstrous, and I think when I read, their economy seems to be collapsing as well.
But there's also an option that corporations shouldn't exist, so no.
Well, that's true. Yes, they shouldn't.
So the one you said or that one?
No, corporations shouldn't exist.
Okay, great. How do you feel about labour unions? These are easy questions now, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they're good.
Okay, they're great and necessary is what I'm clicking. All right, what is a good example of socialism doing a good job? Oh, it's a bit vague.
I don't know.
I'll give you some options. Literacy rates, thanks to free education. Decreased maternal and infant mortality, thanks to healthcare. Or decreased pandemics because of sewers.
Well, all of those things, which of course all apply to Cuba, for example.
Yeah.
Even despite the despicable bloody United States boycott, which has gone on for...
And during the whole Red Scare time in America, people would holiday in Cuba all the time, wouldn't they? And they'd go gambling there and stuff.
That was before the revolution.
Oh, that was before. Oh, right. Okay. So it's hard to pick out of those three. They're all so good. But shall we, because of Cuba, shall I click sewers?
Yeah, go on.
All right. We're nearly there, man. Where would you say socialism went wrong?
Well, it hasn't really had a chance to went right anywhere. So I'd like the chance to. I'd like the chance to really, to try it properly. Really.
Okay, maybe you need the options then. So just pick your favorite one.
Right.
Where do you think socialism went wrong? A, it didn't turn into communism, where I hoped it would. B, in the UK, where it scared off and handed control to the Conservatives for 18 years.
Yeah,
it's not quite how it happened. C, in France, where they strike at the drop of a hat and you can't fire anyone, meaning that hiring is also lower. Or D, Venezuela.
Well, I mean, Venezuela, again, is one of those countries where, you have to admire in some senses because it stands up to the United States, where I think it's probably far from perfect, really. I wouldn't tick any of those options, really. I don't think that socialism has ever really been tried
Interesting.
properly. We've never had a chance to try it.
I wish I could skip fucking questions. And also, they don't offer a description for Venezuela. I'm sorry for the quality of this quiz. That's a strike 3.
Well, you're ruining people's Christmas, I think.
Fuck, I really want to find out what percentage of a socialist you are. Shit.
Oh, it's going to be like a tally at the end.
Yeah. I'm clicking the one where we wish it turned into communism. Who should be allowed to serve in the military? I'm giving this quiz one last chance.
Well, I have See, I think one of the things that we need to, one of the things that's problematic about us on the left is that we sometimes give the same old kind of rote answers, and we don't have a position. It's rather like when we show the film with Andrew Feinstein, he says things like, we should go to Clacton. We shouldn't abandon places like Clacton because we find them. Because people there are disillusioned and have turned to the right. That's exactly where we should fight our battles. Yeah. And similarly, it's true, we should have interest in positions about the military, not just make noises or ignore them. I remember hearing a Trotskyist, Liverpool Scouts Trotskyist, describe the military as workers in uniform. Workers in uniform, comrade. Yeah. I would not decry the idea of an army. I think you would have an army, but I think you would have an army where the armed forces, in fact, but where the ranks you wouldn't abolish rank, because I think that's kind of absurd in an organization that sometimes needs to take decisions quickly. But I would have a people's army. I mean, where the work. The ordinary soldiers chose their equipment specifically because it's a thread of these podcasts is the garbage that the British military is equipped with, and that is definitely all down to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I don't believe that the ordinary sailor would choose Trident over a big fleet of small but adaptable boats. I don't think the ordinary soldier would have chosen the Ajax fighting vehicle, which makes everybody throw up. Certainly wouldn't have chosen the L-85 assault rifle where the magazine falls out of it. And then the average airman, I don't think would have chosen the J-35B, unbelievably expensive and useless fighter. So I think that the ordinary, that you have an army. I think it concentrates on defense. It doesn't concentrate on power projection, but it is nevertheless, you have an armed forces. I think in this world, it would be absurd to dissolve your armed forces, but it would be a people's army, navy and air force.
Wonderful.
And the ordinary citizen would choose their equipment.
People would put down their tools and pick up their guns and go, we'd all.
Well, that's what they do in Switzerland. Every house has got an assault rifle in it in Switzerland, because they also have very low levels of gun crime. So
I'd have a Magnum.
Yeah, you'd have that's not really a military weapon, but
you said I could choose.
No,
you said I could choose.
Yeah, we're hitting a problem. You see, we're already hitting the problem.
I want a Magnum.
No, you can't fucking have a Magnum. You can choose from a limited number of options.
The fuck, man?
All right. Or your fellow cohort of would choose.
I want a Magnum and a baseball bat. That's me. All right.
You're making our enemy's case for us here.
You asked for it, mate. You said I could choose. Christmas. I'm on the front line.
All right.
My baseball bat has one nail sticking out of it.
No. I don't know.
And I've got a cool hat on.
You've ruined my Christmas.
All right. I like that. All right. What is something that you think of as socialism, but almost never gets called socialism? There's lots of things, isn't it? Say one random thing to your head now.
I don't know. Food banks.
Oh, that's not on there. All right, I'm going to pick this one. Okay. Who is the economy?
Everybody.
Very good. We're going into full, would you say the workers or the workers and corporations?
No, just the workers.
The workers. Okay, we're going rapid fire now. What is a good reason to have a war? Go.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't. I
choose one. No, sorry.
I think if you are attacked, I mean, genuinely attacked,
lovely.
Not like pretend attacked like Israel. But
there's an option. You've been invaded.
Yeah. Well, in that case, yeah.
What should the hourly minimum wage be?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
It should be price of an expensive. How much does like an expensive Easter egg cost? Or price of a meal. Price of a meal at Scott's in Mayfair.
Okay, nice.
With a price of a 3-course meal at Scott's in Mayfair with a reasonably priced bottle of wine. So nothing,
That's the hourly wage. All right, I'm picking the highest one. Great. Yeah. Who can you never trust?
Cat.
That's not on. Surprise, surprise, that's not on there. Cat is not on there. Corporations or fascists?
Well, both, obviously.
Yeah. Who more?
Well, fascist corporations. I don't know.
It's a hard one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm picking corporations. Ooh. Who's more likely to take away your rights if they get the chance, the state or corporations?
Corporations, I suppose. It depends on the state. Your quiz is simplistic.
I know it's very simplistic, but we're too near the end.
Your comrade, your quiz is simplistic, and
it's not my quiz, comrade. It's an American quiz.
Well, you for bringing it into our discourse, you should be sent.
Look at it. No, I'm not regretting anything. No, comrade, I don't regret anything. It's made you have some really good outer monologues there.
Well, okay.
So I'm really pleased with what it's brought out of you, comrade. Okay, but we're trying to fly through these because we're too near the end to give up. What is the biggest reason for growing inequality? What do you think?
Capitalism.
Yeah. Okay. Assuming everyone was going to obey it, what is the one law you would pass today?
Be excellent to each other and party on, dude.
I love you so much.
Dead.
I know. I'm gonna click maximum ratio between worker and CEO salaries.
Well, it should be more or less the same.
Or I'd make sure everyone has a gun.
Well, yeah. I mean, in a way, I'm going to surprise you by saying, yeah, if it's like in Switzerland where it's part of a people's militia. Yeah,
the curveball. I'm going to click that one actually. All right. You have become president on a manifesto, on a very socialist manifesto. What spending priority will your administration have?
Oh dear,
I'll give you some options.
Obviously, yeah.
Resigning en masse so as to trigger the end of capitalism, infrastructure, climate change, or colonizing Mars.
Well, I suppose climate change is the one, but I reject the terms of the question really, but probably climate change, I suppose.
Okay.
I mean, everything in a way could feed into climate change. You could have an amazing bursting economy, which was also dedicated to eradicating the effects of climate change. Massive rejungulation plans for the centre of Middlesbrough be rejunglified.
Introduce grizzly bears into Macclesfield.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? Wolves in Wolverhampton. Why not? Rewilding, yeah, definitely. So that's what you could, yeah. That would be my...
All right. Why do you think socialism is so misunderstood?
Because it's in the interests of so many powerful people to misrepresent it. If our media, if our corporate media told the truth about socialism even once a day, it would the views of the public would be very different. I think the fact that socialism survives and when so many lies are told about it and us is a testament to its real power. I think since we live in a world of 24/7 lies about who we are and what we do. Really,
there is an option that is exactly that. Very good. Last question. What is a reasonable tax rate on marginal incomes over $10 million?
What is a reasonable incomes over $10 million?
Yeah.
I don't know, 90%, I suppose.
Ooh.
Does that mean I don't know.
Well,
they pay 90. Well,
nobody should make that much. So 100% or
That's true,
70%.
Yes. I think in a way you have to stop, because great wealth in our society brings great power. You see it with probably Elon Musk, you see it with the Israel lobby, that the wealth is used to thwart the. You see it with the military-industrial complex constantly, that they use that the great wealth that they've accumulated is used to expand their wealth. And that's the problem. That's why we are heading into a terrible darkness, is because that those restrictions that did exist post-war in the post-war kind of compact to restrict the interests of the wealthy are being very rapidly chiseled away. I saw Asif Kapadia has made a very interesting film called 2037, starring Samantha Morton, somebody I've worked with, of course, who wandering through this. She lives in like an abandoned shopping mall, I think, and it's a sort of internal monologue cut together with drone surveillance and facial recognition and all that. But the Asif Kapadia, all that footage is in fact not staged, but it's all real. And so, I saw him I caught a bit of him being interviewed on BBC News. I don't know whether it was the national or the local, but there's this kind of dopey kind of BBC interviewer, and he said to her, you asked me what we can do to stop this dystopia. He said, we're already in it. We're already in the middle of it. We don't have the opportunity to enact some laws and stop it. It's happening right now. Obviously, the genocide in Gaza is the peak of it, but the intrusions of the capitalist state on our lives, Britain leads the world, for instance, in the jailing of climate activists and pro-Palestinian direct. Actually, Britain is 3 times more likely than anywhere else in the world to jail a climate activist or obviously anybody who protests against the Elbit systems. So we're living in a country which in a way is leading the charge in, they accuse socialists of wanting an interfering state, but we live in a state that is interfering to an extraordinary degree in our lives, in telling us lies and in controlling our economy and controlling the arts and controlling how we can protest. And, we're in the middle of it, really. We shouldn't pretend that we can, the House of Lords can pass a bill and this will be all right. It's going to require much greater pushback, I think.
Hear, hear.
That's my Merry Christmas message.
Well, with that, we're at the end of the quiz. I can't believe the result.
How did I do?
You are 152% socialist.
Yay. Yay.
You're more than a socialist. You are a communist.
They're right. So your quiz turned out to be, in its own naive way, perceptive. Yes, I reject those two. Communist, I don't know, schmommunist, I guess.
Schmommunist. You're out to abolish all private property. Socialists just want to regulate it. You seek the withering of the state. Socialists. This is bullshit, isn't it?
So Chris is lying about me.
You seek the withering of the state. Socialists believe in a representative democracy. You find Das Kapital thrilling. Socialists doze off reading the Communist Manifesto. You're a separate group and you deserve recognition. And then there's I don't know. Who's this a picture of? I wish I could show you. He looks a bit like Julian Assange, and he's holding a hammer and sickle like that, with his arms crossed, and he's holding it in front of his face, a hammer and sickle. He's got floppy brown hair, and he's standing in front of a bullet-shot wall. Does that ring any bells?
No.
No. Anyway, that was thrilling. But yeah.
Well, I hope it... I mean, communist, I don't know, it comes with a lot of... I don't know what I am, but I would... I'm not... You know, there's certainly... I would certainly... There's a lot to argue with about what I saw as my parents' kind of Marxist-Leninist communism. I think that is ultimately a dead end. But I would probably say, if anything, I'm an anarchist, really.
You can't distill people's whole beliefs into a fucking quiz with multiple choice.
I'm not a free man. I'm a number.
Well,
73.
that's the... What's that from?
The Prisoner, Patrick McGowan. I'm not a number. I'm a free man. He was number 6, I think. Doesn't your generation know The Prisoner? Well, it's a trippy part of the 60s.
Known a few. Well, that quiz was from How Stuff Works, and fuck you, How Stuff Works. I'm reading the About Us page to see if they're Mormons or something. No. Well, I've got 4 more quizzes and I've got some crosswords here. So
no.
You want to do a crossword?
No, I fucking hate crosswords.
But we're over an hour as well.
Yeah.
But we could give him a bonus treat. I had a quiz about guns. I had a quiz about...
Well, yeah, why don't we do that instead?
Fascist regimes.
Nah. Now, when are we with broadcast news? When are we talking about broadcast news?
Well, there's a spanner in the works now because Andrew Feinstein will be the first one out.
Yeah,
in the new year.
We'll do it after that. So
it'll be the second week in January.
We'll talk about broadcast news.
We'll talk about broadcast news in the second Saturday of January. That, dear listener, is how long you have to watch the film. Send us your comments and questions.
Somebody went and watched Solar Babies.
I saw that, yeah.
I'm sorry, I never told you to do that.
Yeah. They were complaining, weren't they?
Yeah, well, quite right. It's a terrible film. I don't know. I was surprised.
Email us at alexeisaylepodcast@gmail.com. Join the Patreon, patreon.com/alexeisaylepodcast. There's a community chats group there. There's comments and stuff. Hey, I've got a New Year's resolution as well.
All right.
Recently, I've been recording the video of all our podcast recordings. And Andrew Feinstein is recorded in lovely HD. So Feinstein we're going to put on YouTube as a video. But after that, I'm going to say every episode, where possible, there will be the video edition available on our Patreon. We've had a nice uptick of Patreon members, and they deserve a little sugar. So you get to see our ugly mugs while we sit and talk to each other with our big headphones
in our
on.
Spare rooms, yeah.
Our spare rooms, our wives and girlfriends walking around in the background. The odd cat appearance.
Yeah, he's been quiet today.
He's been quiet today. So yeah, on Patreon from next year, I'm going to put the video recordings of our podcast up, and you have to be a Patreon member to view those. Okay. Otherwise, enjoy the podcast as you do. Spread the word.
Yeah.
A little shout out to anyone who's suffering this festive season, who's not feeling well, who's lost loved ones, who has to work. And if you're not working, be nice to people who are working. If anyone's serving you a fucking coffee, even if it's not Christmas, obviously, but especially now, they don't want to be fucking working, but they need to pay their rent like the rest of us. Big shout out to you and all of my Syrian brothers and sisters and Palestinian brothers and sisters. Indeed. Shout out to you as well.
A woman once said to me, she said, my daughter worked at a celebrity event handing out nibbles and snacks, and she said, you were the only one. She said you were the only one who was nice to her. Because what you didn't know was I'm always nice to the people handing out nibbles and snacks, because that way you get more nibbles and snacks. I also usually position myself by the door where they come and go. That's a tip. If you're at a celebrity event where they're serving like little sliders and sushi.
Be the first one they pass when they come through the door.
Yeah, get by that door. Locate the door.
Oh, it's you again.
It's enlightened self-interest, isn't it? It's
no such thing as charity. I
don't put political theory. That is enlightened self-interest. It's, I'm nice, but that's
it's just fucking evidence that if you are nice, better things happen to you. Like that is the most direct evidence of that. Have we finally got a Wilf?
Yeah. What is it? What you want?
Is he wishing something to all our listeners?
He could, let's pretend that. Let's go on the bed. All right. Bye-bye. Merry Christmas, everybody. And, bye-bye. You've been listening to the Alexei and Talal podcast. This show is produced and edited by Talal Karkuti. Music by Tarbush Records. Thanks to Audio Boom for hosting us. Please keep your emails coming in at alexeisaylepodcast@gmail.com. Goodbye.